In this video, we're going to go ahead and try and create some toolpaths for our base and our top so we can go ahead and cut out our container, our first couple steps of the container. So I'm going to start a new part here in the same folder, and I'm going to just call it the same thing, in this case 2023 container. I'm going to say this is step 4. I'm going to name this one actually Toolpaths. And then click save. Got to save it first before we can drag anything in. You may open up step 1 or the first thing and you can put your toolpaths on there. That is fine too. In fact, that is probably the best practice for most people. But because I'm creating different steps, I'm just going to take this one and I'm going to drag and drop it in here. I'm going to leave it just like that because that's kind of the direction that I want it, and click OK. And now I'm going to go over to the manufacturer mode. Now just know that anything I make a change over here in step 1 will automatically reflect here in this step because they're linked together. Okay? So that's kind of why I did it that way. You don't have to, but you may. Change the units here. I'm going to change that to inches because that's what we've been using, and click OK. And now I'm ready to set up. So my first setup, of course, I'm going to click over here in the corner is where I'd want to click for my box point. It is Z height going up, the Y and the X direction. For my stock, I'm going to add some stock to the sides and top and bottom. Or actually what I'm going to do is not add this. We could add some stock if you needed to. Instead, I'm going to click a fixed box size, and I am going to actually type that in. So in my case, I went with a dial caliper, and I measured that mine is actually 4.51 with the width and 3.513. Notice that I'm going to go from the center of the model on both of those, so it goes both directions. The height is going to be 2 inches. We're going to leave that exactly the same. And we can even look at that real close here. All right, if I look real close, you can see that it's a little bit bigger. See that? Just a little bit bigger than the 4.5. And then the same thing here. Should be just a little bit bigger than the actual 3.5 in my Y direction. Okay. I think I'm finished with this now. Might have to select the model so we know. So I'm going to select all 3 of these. Okay. And so it knows the model there. And then back to stock, make sure everything's set up correctly. And then I will click OK. All right, now I have my setup correct. I did that by actually measuring out the physical part that I have. And I can get started with this. I'm going to go down here where it has the view orientation and go to Tool Isometric. I like viewing it from this spot, kind of what we're going to cut it out at, where we're going to clamp it. And then we can start putting this together. I think it sometimes doesn't matter the order, but picture the box itself is all together, right, the stock. And so I'm going to hog out the big part first, and that is this pocket right here. All right, and so I will go down over here to 2D, and we'll select pocket. And I'll select the bottom face because that's how far I want to go down. And the tool, though, I want to put in there is going to be over here, and it's actually called the Amana tools. Gee, might be, yeah, Amana tools right there. And then these Amana tools, they have a number 1 by them, all of them. I'm going to try to renumber those in a second, and I can do that by clicking renumber. I'm not going to renumber lengths and diameters and all that. I'm just going to renumber each one, and so it's easier to remember. And I believe the one we want to select is number 5, but make sure it is a flat end mill, okay? And that is a 1/4 inch flat end mill. I'm going to try to do everything from this 1/4 inch flat end mill. So we'll go ahead and select that. We had already selected the geometry was the bottom. Let's keep going through here. This is something we don't want to forget. We want to take a look at all of these things, okay? The heights, right? The clearance, retract height, those should all be okay. The clearance height could be a little less, but for right now we're going to leave it that way just by default. The passes are important for what we need to do. I would select both ways all the time. It just makes it a little quicker. It goes both directions then. Stock to leave, we don't want to leave any stock. We want this to look exactly like it does in the model, but we do have to have multiple depths. Multiple depths, otherwise it would be too much to do at once. That is a huge key. And so in this case, I'm going to do half of whatever the diameter is, and so 0.125. And then I'm going to use even step downs. Maybe it's a little bit different than 0.125. We'll use even step downs. It kind of divides it perfectly for us all. All right, so that's those. There's other things we can do here that you can mess around with, but we're going to go ahead and leave it like that with the multiple depths. The linking here, a couple things we want to definitely do. Probably leave them all the same. Allow rapid retract. It means it goes up fast. That's good, like G0. And we want to keep the tool down so it doesn't go up every single time it makes a new pass. Okay, that's going to save us a bunch of time. Leaded entry, we'll kind of show you what that looks like. You don't have to have a leaded entry, but you may. It kind of like leads them off to the side, and so it kind of helps it out a little bit. I'll leave those checked for now. One thing I do not want to do is the helix approach. You'll see the difference here, but the helix approach is kind of, it twirls around. It takes a long time. We don't need to do that. We're going to plunge right into the stock, and so that makes it a lot quicker. Or we're going to plunge, and then we're going to click OK, and we're going to see our setup here. So there it is, and actually it jumped right into the stock there. So you can see the multiple depths that it's going to do, as you can see there. Okay, and over here we can see how long it actually takes. So I have my times in here, and I'll show you how to get those to show up for you, because that's really key. So it's going to take 2 minutes and 12 seconds at its fastest. We might slow it down a little bit in real life, but that's what it would take if I had it at its fastest speed. Up here by your name, you can actually go to the little silhouette. You're going to go to Preferences. And under Manufacturer, you can have the default units be inches. Oh, yeah, up here to Manufacturer. And what we're going to do is we can show the tool number and show operation machine time. Okay? That's a good one to do too. So those few things. And then apply and click OK. And that should display your machine time there and what tool that you have. That's why we renumbered the tools. All right, let's do another one. In this case, I'm going to click off of that. We can click back on it. It'll show us. But we'll do another one. And I think this one, now that we're up there, we'll go ahead and do this contour around the edge. And so this is a 2D contour. I'm going to select this face right there. It should have the same tool selected, which is nice. And then the height should be the same. The passes, we're going to double check here. We're going to select multiple depths, and we're going to change that to 0.125, just like we did before. We don't want to go too deep. We'll keep the tool down as we do that, and we can do that lead-in entry, and it looks like everything is okay there. And then I'm gonna double check here. This one, did we have stock to leave on that? No, we don't. That's good. We don't want to leave any stock. All right, I'm gonna click OK, and that went ahead and it went around that outside there. So one more thing here. That one goes really quick, 14 seconds, it says. I'm going to show you a little trick here to take some more stock out. See that it didn't get all the way to the outside edge here. We could have done an adaptive milling, and that could work, and you may do that yourself. Instead, I'm going to do another contour, and I'm just going to offset it. So I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to right-click this one, and I'm just going to duplicate it. And it creates the exact same thing. So it's doing nothing different. So instead of going right around that one, I'm going to go to this one. The only thing I'm going to change is the stock to leave. So under passes, I'm going to go down here and say stock to leave. And I'm going to axial stock, which means in the Z height, I'm going to say 0. But radial stock here, I am going to say 0.2. All right? Because the diameter of the tool is 0.25, so I'll say 0.2 and see if we can get all this stuff done here. Click OK, and you see how it went a little bit farther outside, okay, with that. All right, so I have that one, really quick contours that we're going to do. All right, you can see it's a little bit longer, so it takes 16 seconds. The only difference is this one's really close to it, and this one's a little bit farther outside, so it takes a little bit more stock there. All right, now I'm ready to do this contour around the outside edge. So we'll do the same thing, 2D contour. We'll select here, same tool, same heights, passes, gotta go to multiple depths. That one is the biggest thing here so we don't break a tool. And 0.125 for the multiple depths. And no stock to leave, we'll leave it the same. And we'll make sure we'll keep the tool down, saves on some time. And I think we have everything we need. And then we'll go ahead and click OK. We'll take a look here. And sure enough, there it goes. It's going to create all those. All right, so that's the next one. But we can see one thing, and this is one I want to point out here. This little guy right here didn't get cut off from the last one. So I needed to go a little bit farther with that offset to get that cut off. Now you might have that in yours or maybe not, but I'm going to go ahead and back to this other one, and I'm going to double click it. And that stock to leave on the passes down here, I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to leave a little bit more stock. So let's say 0.23. As long as it's below 0.25, we should be good. I'm going to do that. And then when I select this one, let's see here. Yep, it got rid of those. Okay. So I think I have all the parts on the top here. The only thing I don't have is these corners, which I can actually just cut off with the bandsaw if I wanted to. Or I can do the same thing. I can right-click this one and copy it and then offset it a little bit to get a little bit more off there. All right, which is not that, since it's only 50 seconds, that's not a hard thing to do. So I might go ahead and do that since we're talking about it. Duplicate, double click this one. Only thing I'm changing is the stock to leave and 0 on the axial and let's do 0.2 like we did before. And then that'll give us a little bit farther outside there. Just took us another 1 minute to do that. So total machine time for this one's under 5 minutes for the setup. I'm going to change the name of this one to base. All right, and there is my base setup. And then I'm going to quickly simulate this. Oops. By right-clicking, going to simulate. And then we can change some options here if we need to. Make sure we got the accuracy there. I would like to say comparison. That gives us a comparison between the actual stock and that when it's finished. We'll go ahead and click play, and you can watch it go. This is very important. You can see exactly where it's going to go in, so you know where it's going to go in when you get to that point, when you put your block in. And then I'm going to go ahead and speed that up, because we know that one worked. And it goes around again, outside there, and the outside again there. And I'm just left with these little itty-bitty little corners, which I can just break off later on. It looks like it got it the same. I can actually go ahead and hide the toolpaths here so I can see, is there any blue? And there's not. It looks just like the model. So I think I'm ready to go. And I will click exit simulation. And then I can do the next setup. So I would be able to click setup again and just flip the part over to do the setup on the other side. So that's the last thing I want to show you. I'll click setup here for a new setup. I'm going to look straight at the part here, and I'm just going to flip it over like I would in real life here. So this is actually the corner I want. I'm going to need to do a little bit of flipping here. I'll have to select maybe the Z and X planes. That's fine. So the Z axis is this one here, and the X axis is this one here. And then we'll go ahead and select the box point in the corner. Don't be alarmed, I just got to flip the X axis, so I'll do that. And now we have it where we need to. The stock is from, see this? It says from the other one, preceding setup. So that was the other setup. So we know the stock is exactly the same. And now we can click OK. Oh, no model selected. Okay. Let's go back and select that model, right? So looks like it did it for me. And then we can click OK here. And now we're ready to go for the other side, which would technically be the top side.